Hello friends, once again I Jasveer Singh am there for you. In our previous class we have talked about writing task 2. While covering that we have discussed about 4 criteria that are very necessary for us to take care of so as to cover our writing task 2 and score well. At the end of that lecture I talked about that we will discuss in the upcoming lecture about connectors. Okay. There are certain other aspects also which I will try to cover in this lecture. Okay, so let us begin. Connectors, we use connectors so as to maintain cohesion. Okay, so this is all about task 2. This is all about task 2. Cohesion. So as to maintain cohesion, we use connectors. We may call them cohesive words. What are those cohesive words? When we complete our introduction, thereafter we have to join our introduction with the first body paragraph as we have discussed in the previous lecture. Okay, the first connector that you can use here can be at the onset. Okay, your first letter of connector should be capital. Obviously it is going to be capital because you are going to write it at the beginning of a sentence. But sometimes you used to connect your next idea with the previous one. At that time also you used to use connector. You will have to take care of it that your first letter of connector should be capital, and at the end of the connector there should be a comma. There should not be any space between the word and the comma. Like you should not write it like this. This is called an error which is called comma splash. So as to avoid that, we should write a comma here. Okay, the second connector can be to commence with, another one can be to begin with. Okay, you may write first and the foremost. First and the foremost. Okay, so these are connectors that you are supposed to write when you start your first body paragraph. Now, in a body paragraph, we used to write different views. Suppose we have written first views while connecting our writing with this connector. So as to connect our first view with that of the second view, we may write in addition to it. This is to connect our first idea with the second one, or you may use this connector so as to add your third idea to the second one. Okay, in addition to it, your connector can be furthermore, it can be moreover, it can be likewise. Your connector can be similarly. Okay, it can be adding to it. Okay, so you can mention besides this. These are some of the connectors that are really very important. You may write them in your writing task. Now, when you start with your second body paragraph, the connector that you are going to use there would entirely depend upon the kind of question that you are answering. Suppose your question is, we have discussed the type of questions in the previous lecture. Suppose your question is, do you agree or disagree? In that situation, as we have discussed in the both paragraphs, your viewpoints would be either about agreement or they can be about disagreement. Okay, suppose you are answering this question Do you agree or disagree? Now, how would you connect your first body paragraph with that of the second one? So as to do so, you would write to dredge it deeper. We may write to probe it further, or we may write in continuation. Okay, we'll have to keep in mind the kind of question that we are answering. Suppose your second body paragraph views are contradictory with that of your first body paragraph. In that situation, your connector would also be different. Okay, so your connector in that situation can be contrary to it. It can be on the flip side. Your connector can be there is another school of thoughts. Okay, you may write as per those who differ. Okay, so in this way, while using these connectors, you may start your second body paragraph. The paragraph whose views, the views that you are going to discuss in that particular body paragraph would be different from the former paragraph that we have written. Okay, then after that, we'll have to conclude our task. In conclusion, we shall use to sum up. We can say in essence. Okay, we can write here to end it up. You may write to cut the story short. Your connector can be hammering the last nail. You may write to recapitulate. You can write here to encapsulate. So these are the connectors that we use so as to end up our writing, so as to write our conclusion. Okay, so it is quite necessary for us to understand the meaning of these connectors, and we will have to decide according to the kind of answer, the question that we are answering. Okay, so these are the connectors. There are certain other things that are very necessary, that are also equally important in writing task 2. You need to keep your writing left aligned. That does mean that you should start, suppose you start your writing at this point. This is your end line, the line that is there on the left side of your paper. So you need to start your writing from here. Every time you start your sentence from here, you need not to leave any space here. Okay, in the same way, you need not to leave any unnecessary space at the end of your sentence also. Okay, so your writing need to be legible. Okay, So another thing that I have discussed earlier too, that we have to keep a first letter of our connector capital, and at the end we have to put a comma also. These things are very necessary, and we should avoid to start our sentence with but, because. Okay, we should not use any contractions in our writing. Contraction does mean we cannot write like etc. We cannot write haven't. Okay? So these are those words that we used to use in informal writing. We have to keep our writing purely formal. Because of those reasons, neither we can use words like but or because. We can write these words even in, we cannot write these words even in our formal writing or informal writing. At the same time, we have to take care of contractions also. Though we can use contractions in informal writing, but they are not supposed to be used in our formal writing. Okay, we'll have to take care of these things. This was all about our writing task 2. So I hope that everything regarding cohesion would be clear to you. Okay, so if you do have any difficulties in understanding this, I am waiting for your views in the comment box. Okay, so accordingly I will decide about my next lecture. If you feel like that my pace of teaching is faster than that of your learning or understanding, then I may slow it down. If you find it quite slower, then I can make it faster. Okay, so it would be according to your feedbacks. Okay, so that's all.